and welcome back to VFX Tutors. And as you know, I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to go through the lighting of this shot. So hopefully you're at the stage where you've gone through and done everything and you're at the point of lighting and stuff. So I haven't actually done all the animation yet, and I'm probably not going to do all the animation for it, just going to do this rough blocking. But it's enough so I can carry, because if I was doing it, it would take a lifetime for me to do the animation. So with this rough blocking, I can sort of also do the lighting as well. So we've got all our shot basically done. Now we just have to light it. So the first thing that we really want to do is, well, you should have already done your HDRI process. We did that ages ago. So now we can finally go to Arnold Lights and create a skydome light. If we just go to our perspective, we'll see that we've got our skydome light here. And we've still got a background shader on this at the moment, but it doesn't matter. So if I just go to my attributes editor, go to my default dome light shape, and I'm just going to go to color, file, and I'm just going to navigate to our HDRIs. I don't know why my brain broke then. It's alright, I think. Probably in HDRI. So we've got multiple ones in here. So hopefully if we click on it, we can see that I've taken the HDRI in different positions for different shots. So even though it's probably we're gonna have one lighting setup for every single shot, and it will probably work throughout, just in case I have done it from further on. But you can see this is one that's further on up the path in the little hut things here. So this would probably be more. We could use this one for the last couple shots where he's walking away. And it's got like a middle one. I forgot I'd even done this. It's been a while since it's been a long journey going from shooting this to actually using some of the data in it. So it's good to actually start using it. So there's in the middle bit, so you can use that if you want as well. What have we got here? Because don't forget, we've had to go out and reshoot this because there was a lot of people having annoying little party here. So we've got the HDRI from the other side if we needed that as well. But I think the one we want is this one. It's the HDRI in the bench area with no people taking drugs and partying. So I'm just going to click open. And what we'll do is, and we can see that the HDRI is in, but we've got this background shader. So next thing I'll do is going to right click, add new material, go to Arnold and stick a AI shadow matte on that, because that's what we're going to need. So as you can see, we've got our skydome in there. So usually the first thing you want to do is just align it as best as you can see straight away. So with this one, fortunately, it's quite easy to line up fairly quickly. We still will be using chrome balls and lighting charts just to check it, but it's nice to get a good sort of starting point. You can even go into your camera. If we hide our image plane, you should be able to see it. Which is something like that. That's pretty close. And we probably won't have to move it because it's really easy to do it this way. But so we've done that. And what we'll do, we'll just straight away see what the render looks like. Because the sun's kind of clipping above it, I think it's just above it. If the sun was really peeking out, we might have to remove it from the HDRI, but let's just see what it looks like with just the HDRI. And I'm going to go to my attributes editor. I'm just going to turn my visibility off so it doesn't render the HDRI as well. I'm going to Arnold render view. And let's just see what this looks like straight out the box with I'd be very surprised if it works nicely straight away. Okay, so it's kind of working, but we've got some kind of weird red stuff going on. I don't know what that is. Might be something, I don't know. But we won't worry about that in a minute. So we can straight away see that HDRI is actually working really nicely. We've got some pretty nice shadows and it's picking up everything as well. And the color, because we're working with a red, I feel the color's also not that far off, but you can never tell until you put it next to a chart. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do now with HDRI is figure out why this is red. We might want to adjust our set geo as well at some point to sort of match up with this a little bit tighter. But I'm just going to pause that. And before I do anything, I'm going to stick a key light in there because I don't really know what's going on. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know why that's so red. It could be something to do with the HDRI. Something maybe like it's clipping from here and it's putting in pushing a color that we don't really want. So I'm just going to create a light and our directional light. And this is going to be our key light for our shadows. So this is going to be an extremely basic lighting setup. And most of this we can get done without using the chrome balls and the light, the color chart. But it's kind of nice to sort of still use it. And we know the sun is basically coming straight down at them. And now let's click play on that. Cool. So, got a feeling what might be also causing the red for some reason. It's reduced it, but we've still got some here. Is that when you're using this geo as a sort of a shadow catcher, you will need to go to, I'm not doing it, so select the geo and go into the shape, visibility, and turn off self shadows so it doesn't double up on the shadows. Next, it's not doubling up on the shadows. Still got some red going on here. I'm not even sure that is. It could be something to do with the geo. Not entirely sure. Could be the samples, but let's just focus on our character at the moment because this doesn't matter. It's mostly what's going on with our character. So I'm just going to pause that. I'm just going to drag that over and I'm actually going to go to my camera. Just going to pick a bit of a more interesting frame. Some more shadows. Press play on that and see how that looks. Cool. So we've got a character in there. It's lit. We haven't changed anything. We've added just a key light and our HDRI. Actually, it's looking all right straight out of the box, but we've got quite a few things that we still need to sort of go over. So like our shadows, although in tone they're sort of matching, but they're a bit too sharp, and we can do this with the angle. So before we do any of that, because we've done this is why the light probes are really useful. So we've got our basic setup, and this is probably not going to be much more than a basic setup because luckily we've got, if you've got the HDRI to the exact same position of where you filmed it, lighting it gets a little bit easier. Not saying that it's easy, it gets super complicated, but in this instance, to get something working relatively quickly, it's fairly good. Cool. So I'm just going to pull this off to the side. And I am going to go by perspective. I'm just going to go create. And I'm going to create a free image plane. Just going to bring this up here. Scale it up. Show image planes. Let's just rotate that 90 degrees. And what I want to do is add my element, because I have the elements of the probes and the Macbeth chart. So I'm going to go to my where is elements, and we're currently in B08. And now I know I didn't do it for every single shot because I don't think we need to do it. I probably in hindsight, for like the sort of teaching and training, probably should have, but I'm pretty sure I only did it for these ones where it's this side. I mostly did it on this side. And you can see we've got our Macbeth chart and our light probes here with our very handsome actor. So we'll just click open. And I'm just going to use this here as my sort of reference. Ooh, and I think we've flipped it around or wait. So minus 90. Cool. And the one thing that you'll notice that the actual angles, it is different. So because we've probably maybe I should have used the shot, which actually this correlates to a bit closer. But I don't want to make it too easy. I'll show you little tips and tricks that we can do to sort of still use this, but get us some decent accurate lighting. So I'm just gonna see if I can see it on my camera, just so it's easy to see. Obviously this won't render, but this will be in the correct color space. So now what I'm going to do is create a sphere, and I'm going to make my probes. You can make them at the correct size if you want. It probably does help quite a bit making them at the correct size. I'm going to guesstimate how big they were. I don't know, they weren't huge. In fact, I think I can remember what they are. I think they are 12.5. No, 6.5 seems too big. Ooh. Trying to think how big they were. I think they were 60. Anyway, so I'm just going to duplicate this. Just call this our grey and our chrome. I'm just going to make a plane. I'm just going to rotate this around, and this will be for our color chart. So I will just like roughly scale it. We don't need all those subdivisions. Like, you probably want to have, I don't know why I haven't done it yet, but I probably should have one set up already, because it just makes things easier. Well, I think I do. I'm just going to go through the process of making one. So you should have all this stuff, be able to download this stuff as well. So just call it Macbeth. So on this one right, it's going to be the chrome one. So we're just going to right click, add new material, Arnold, AI standard surface. I'm just going to go to presets, select chrome and replace all selected. So I'm going to go to the grey, right click, add new, assign new material, Arnold, AI standard surface. So I'm going to remove the specular, and then I'm going to go to my color. And I want to make sure my RGB is set to 0 to 255. Then I go 122, 122, and 121. And why have I picked these? Because these are the values that are actually relative to this. So on the color checker X-Rite website, that's what they say the middle grey is. So we're going to stick with that. And I know this has got some specular on Arbol, so we can sort of match that as well. So our next thing to do is add our Macbeth chart. So we're going to assign new material again. Arnold, AI standard surface. Let's get rid of the specular. Go to our color and file. Then we want to navigate to, and you can download this. This is on my Gumroad for free, so you can download it. And I think I have charts here. And I have multiple charts for different things, but this is the standard X-Rite one. If I just click hardware texturing, it'll probably start loading, and I've got it the wrong way around. So let's rotate that around. Whoopsie. So that's why it's sometimes easier just to make one and just import it in. Cool. So we've done that. We've got our Chrome, our Grable, and our Macbeth chart. So just go back to my camera. And obviously this is in a slightly different position, but there's nothing stopping us rotating it around. But let's just see what it looks like as is. Hopefully it won't be too bad. So we'll just update the full scene. Cool. And you'll notice that this is all black because this is our shadow catcher. And you can see it can actually prove quite useful to line up our stuff, but because our balls are not in the exact same place, it won't necessarily match perfectly. So if we sorry, this is quite tricky to get this all on one window. So I'm just going to 2D pan. I'm going to pause that. So it's backslash, and so I've got my color chart here. And what I'll do, I'll just hide my geo. So we won't get any shadows, but that means that now we've got a visual representation of our HDRI. So we can see straight away that even though, like, straight out of the box we thought it was all right, we can see that we've got some looks very different. Obviously, one, we're in a completely different angle, and our exposures is slightly rough. So let's try and match these exposures first. So I'm just going to go to my Skydome light. And what we can do is bring down the exposure, intensity, so it starts to match. It's a little bit darker up here, so we can go. Cool. And see with that, we're bringing some of this shadow back now as well. So it's not going to be the same as this because we're at a different angle. And if you really take a look at this, we can see that, like, without having these directly on top of each other, these look really close already. So I'm just going to go to my directional light, which is going to be our key light, because I want to try and keep this sort of similar. It does look a little bit darker up the top, actually, so what we can do is just maybe go to 0.18. And if we go to our directional light, we could probably put our exposure up to 1. And the difference between, you see how, like, if we do exposure, if I do my intensity, see how that's bringing it all up. But now if I change for my exposure, they do slightly different things, but you'll learn to sort of work with and around it. So we kind of want to boost this because it's kind of a little bit, although we've got our sort of ambient sort of lighting, we kind of want to maybe push this up to 1.1 just so it brings up the brightness, starts to match the color. It's very small values, but it'll go a long way. And we can see that, like, comparing these, they're probably not absolutely perfect, but for what we're doing right now, it's pretty close. And in comparison to how we had it at the beginning, where we just put it in, this has already gone such a long way to matching this. So I'm just going to pause that, and I'm just going to go to my perspective view. I'm just going to pull that over to the right for now. And I said we don't have this particular angle. There's nothing stopping you doing stuff like this if you feel like you want to sort of roughly get that angle. Let's hide our Beeble character, actually. It'll probably help if we group all this. Probably, let's put it roughly in, let's try and get it in a similar position. So I know he's sat around here. It's probably out like that. It's not going to be absolutely perfect, but it's worth a shot, right? So let's see how it goes, and we'll put that up like that. Cool. So now we can actually rotate that around so it's not so gross. So now we've sort of like roughly lined that up and done a guesstimate. So we can press play again on our perspective shape. We'll probably want to hide that again. I'm going to lighten now. That doesn't matter. Cool. So if I just 2D pan zoom in on that, we can see that actually just from like guesstimating this sort of position, we're actually pretty close. We've got this wide opening. See our looks like we've got quite a bit more magenta in here than the actual sky in here. But the other thing that I want to kind of sort of pick up is this sort of the grey ball. So you can see we've got this kind of cutting line across here, but it's not here. We're missing out on a bit of stuff. So that might be because we've got our shadow cast hidden. It definitely looks a bit too hard. So what we can do is go to our directional light. And you have this thing called the angle. And basically this is going to sort of soften the edges of the shadows. Just want to bring this down. To sort of get, and this is just like sort of trying to guesstimate what we've currently got here, but maybe even bring this back up to 2. So don't forget this has got, this ball here has got some specular on it, so let's go with 0.7. And that will affect how it sort of lit as well. So let's take a gamble at the IOR on that. So it's not super spectacular, but it's enough to sort of make a difference. We're quite dark around here, so yeah, I feel we're pretty close. So even though we put that out, let's bring up our cool. So I'm just gonna go back to my camera now. And this takes a lot of like fiddling around with. Don't like do it quickly or like take your time with it. It's really worth sort of playing around with it. So they are over here at the moment. So let's hide that and put those back a little bit over there so they're not quite in the way as much. Probably need to. Yes, it's not updating, so let's. Just render update full scene. Cool. Let's go back to our camera. Pull that out the side for now because it's just getting in the way. And if we just flick between perspective, shape, and that should reset that. And let's hide that so it's not creating shadows. So we've got something reasonably close. It's not absolutely perfect, and you want to spend more time on it. And this is where like really refining this and getting this in to sort of get dialing that sort of that lighting in really does help. And it can be quite, if you've got everything, it's not super difficult, but it can get very tricky to get all the colors right. And we've got kind of the golden ticket here where because we're red footage and it's working really well with the HDRI straight away. It's no. I did my white balance checks when I went out there, so that they're kind of, it's when all the onset data stuff's done nicely, it kind of sits together and kind of works out the box most of the time. Cool. So that being said, it doesn't, even though we do all this light, we can hide that, and if it sucks with the character, it doesn't matter because let's hide that. At the end of the day, it's what looks nice with the character. So as much as it is very, very important to get the lighting matching, and it helps a huge amount, let's update the full scene. It'll always really come down to how the character looks. So that could possibly, when I'm looking at this, he looks very dark. It's hard to tell whether if it's just from the shaders, the blue's a little bit dark, and my shadows are super soft. So the first thing that we'll do is go to my directional light. I'm going to fix this soft shadows first. And that'll be because my angle is too much. We don't have to render the whole thing. We can just do a region render here. And you can see as I'm bringing this down, shadows are getting softer, but also it's getting darker. So let's bring up our sort of global sort of sky dome values. So we kind of want this sort of to be very similar. We don't want it to be, we don't want these shadows to be super dark, although there'll be a level of light comp that comes into after this, which will undoubtedly help a lot. We want to try and get it as close as possible straight away. So just added a tiny bit more exposure to that. And I'm trying to get it to match with sort of this one, so I think that's looking pretty close. So I'm just going to turn my region render off. It's playing. And you can see we've got, it's much more, he's much brighter, and I think that's probably a bit more close to actually what we want. We don't want him really dark, even though it's probably, the shade is not absolutely fantastic, but it's showing a lot nicer now. So it's pretty simple lighting, and obviously you can go into way more detail, adding more sort of extra lights in to boost it, but I don't think we really need it for this. This whole thing was supposed to be very simple and easy, not really to go into super complicated lighting stuff. It was basically to get your first sort of like really nice looking, for like your first showreel piece. If you're learning, this is like a billion. If I had this when I was learning it, it would have been amazing. But yeah. So I don't think we really need to say anything else for this, because we've got such good data and everything else. It kind of works very easily. So yeah, I don't really know what else to say. It can be more difficult when you don't have all the HDRIs and all the other sort of data going with it, but hopefully when you see this, it gives you more enthusiasm to go out and get all the data and stuff. Cool. So I'm quite happy-ish with the lighting for now, without going into like a huge tutorial. Next thing that I kind of want to do is, you notice that our shadows are super grainy, and I'm not too bothered about having long renders go on my computer or my other one, so I just have it rendering going along. So you kind of, it's up to you on what your computer's like. So obviously you've got your samples and your lights. So my sky dome light, my samples are 1. 4's quite high for samples, but I don't mind the render times, because I don't want to go through denoising and stuff like that. So if I now just region render on the shadowy part, we can see that our noise is cleaning up quite nicely. So in fact, almost no noise, but we still do have some in there. So that's probably, if we go into our render settings, Arnold render, let's do mad silly settings. I tend to, when I'm doing stuff for my own stuff, I just stick on 644. It's quite high settings, but I don't want to actually do anything else. I try to get the renders as close as possible. I don't mind the longer render times for myself. And you can see now that's pretty much cleared up all that noise in there. And you can see how much longer it's taking. So it really depends on what your computer's like and how much time you've got for a project. Obviously, it's not ideal to stick those values in all the time if you're all like you've got a project to do. It's all about if you've got the time, basically. But yeah, so other than that, I guess the next thing that we do is going on to rendering. I'll do that in a second one where we'll just set up the AVs and all the passes and stuff like that. When you're doing your lighting as well, it's probably worth going around and refining any sort of, although you can't really see it here, but we have got a shadow edge where it's the geo is not absolutely perfect on it, but we can worry about that at another time. So make sure, like when you're doing lighting, it's really important to make sure your set geo is really tight, because it'll just save you a lot of hassle in the long run. But yeah, I'm literally just going on and on now. So hopefully you've enjoyed this tutorial. You've gone through our lighting, setting up our HDRI and putting a directional light in there, matching our probes and stuff. So yeah, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. Don't forget that like and subscribe, it really does help. And it's actually, we're very close to coming to a near end of this series, and it's probably been the longest series ever for CGI and VFX, and probably no one's going to watch it because it's too long and it's not like a 10-minute wonder video. But anyway, it's out there if you want to watch it. Alright, I'm going to stop going on. Alright, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one, which will probably be rendering. Thanks.